It has become almost a kind of tradition that just when winter leans into spring, as we hope, that faculty and students from all over the world come to Slavonice.
Welcome to the beginning of the Slavonice Studio 2011. We're very excited to be here for the third year, and this year the program is bigger than ever. We have Professor Olin, landscape architect from Philadelphia, and Hallie Boyce, also professor at the University of Pennsylvania, and a new guest this year, Professor Henry Hansen from the Czech Technical University. And we have wonderful students from 3 universities: Philadelphia University, my university, the University of Pennsylvania, and Czech Technical University. So we will be working on projects in your town for the next week.
The students that we have here are training to study landscape architecture, which is about how to design land and space for social purpose. It's also related to other issues of ecology, agriculture, industry, and of course, entertainment and recreation. There are many ways that people can design things that go together, and the question is which things go together in a place like Slavonice.
This rock, this plaque were put here in 1991. As you know, on the 11th of November 1989, officially the Iron Curtain fell. I don't know anybody at the time who ever thought it could happen. For us growing up, Tomasz on his side here and me over there with the same age, at that time nobody thought we'd ever be standing here together. Incredible.
What is this structure?
It's a bunker.
No.
We take a walk there, and those bunkers was built before the Second World War in the 30s by Czech people.
And from each bunker you can see the other one.
While there is a lot of difficult and negative history, genocide, wars, repression, unhappiness, there also, within the town's history itself, there is the possible structure or solution for a future.
The Center for the Future is an OPS, which is a non-profit. It's a legally set up to make this town the center of our cultural activities and to make it the center of what we believe ought to be done within the sustainability debate. We're open to the town, we're open to the public.
4 years ago in the summer, there was a meeting in Colorado with our founders, Pam and John Lifton-Solin, and they had invited contacts of theirs from Philadelphia and Pennsylvania University. And the contact with Olin was established through Professor Mona Livingston, who is teaching at the architecture department of Philadelphia University, and we sat together and presented Slavonice as a possible location for their design studios. So we had the first studio and it was a success, and we've been doing it ever since for the last 3 years running.
We all get along pretty well, and we all trust each other completely.
Thanks to the hard work of many, the people who make this enterprise work and the people from the institutions that are represented here, there has again happened explosion of strong ideas, and engagement.
The students who have been working here, who are the future of landscape architecture, are starting to tackle problems which are very central problems about the future of culture on the earth.
And the students actually start learning about the place and researching the place when the academic year starts. So already in the US, after they've chosen the studio that they will attend, they are being taught about the place and asked to research and prepare before they come here. So once they come here, what we are trying to do, what especially Tomasz has been doing, is to organize trips to locations that help them to gain information about the project that they are doing.
In those landscape you can find a lot of small towns which was developed like 600 years ago, 700 years ago, and I just was finding some places which could be interesting for those students. And
the students have studied your region, your country, and the town a bit, but now they're here to actually see the real thing.
The reason why I bring you to this corner is because it was only last year that when the family who bought this house started to inquire into what to do with the facade, that two pieces broke off, tiny pieces, and they suddenly realized that underneath 2 layers of facade that was slapped on top, they had what will turn out maybe one of the biggest and most beautiful originally preserved sgraffitos. We can only guess how much there still is.
There's an awful lot to see on this walk. For instance, I'll just say one thing. This facade, which looks really goofy, if you see it as a drawing, is a perfect elevation. But when you see it as a building, it's all kind of squished around. This gate was the gate to the cemetery. And then later what happened was they decided to build a chapel and use that as the door for the chapel and build another gate. And so what we have is a couple of different periods of history all in this one thing. The idea of adding things and continuing to add layers, you know, is part of what you guys are doing in terms of planning in the town. There's a thing, and then it gets the next layer, and then it gets the next bigger thing because the scale changes, and then you've got to change in use or idea, you know. So it's like a metaphor for what you're doing in a way. Huh?
This place is very hospitable, so, you know, it's a good match. It's a good match for students.
oh, we make some trips for them, or I try to organize, and we visit like Jewish cemetery, which is like well preserved in good condition.
During the time of the Iron Curtain, when this whole area was basically secluded from the world, this was a totally secret place known to only very few people.
The oldest stone is like 300 years old, and the last person was buried like 70 years ago, 80 years ago, 1930.
Then we go to some Middle-age castle. We visit monastery with a church.
We're going up to that church up there.
And then we go to Trzeboń. In Trzeboń we visit the museum which explains the fishing pond industry.
They started to build the ponds in 1500 here in southern Bohemia, and mainly in 16th century. That was the main period for ponding. There's about 1,000 of ponds in this area.
This area has probably the most developed fish ponds and the most sophisticated methods of handling all this.
There's the old town, you know, with the late medieval Renaissance, etc. stuff coming through the 18th and 19th century. Then there's this 20th century post-war stuff here. Now we're going to go see the post-revolution, counter-revolution stuff up here. They need to know what parts are precious and how they relate to each other in space and in time. And so they need to see and walk around and feel this town with themselves, with their own feet and their own eyes. To teach landscape architects, you have to get them out in the landscape, and you have to get them to feel it and to be in it and to experience it. They have to know it. And the only way you know it is to be with it, you know. You can't learn it from books. You can learn a lot from books, but not feeling. Careful, guys. I don't want you to fall in, really. I'm not kidding. This is very thin over here. Mm-hmm.
It's thick on the sides.
Well, and the way to get feeling is to be with it, you know. You've got to experience it, and then you have to actually sense it and care about it. We're practicing several things. One, practicing planning and design. We're practicing how to learn. We're practicing how to work together. We're practicing how to develop visions. And you all have something to offer, and so you have to figure out how you're going to work together and what it is of all the many ideas you all have, how to sort them, and then how to work with as many as you can in a creative way.
What happens here is something that none of us can predict, because it's that cross-fertilization of ideas that
personalities.
Yeah, it's very exciting. So it may seem strange for the first hour or two, but guaranteed to produce something that we all can stand behind.
So we really want you to be daring, but we also want you to be practical.
What we did is we divided the students up into 5 groups. We picked the teams based on their strengths and weaknesses, trying to put together students whose skills would complement one another, because really students learn a lot from one another in addition to learning from their professors.
It's a lot to process and work through with a group of 5 people. It takes a lot of time just to understand and communicate and divide the work and all those things. So.
Well, we're preparing them for real studios after they get out of school. We don't tell them how to think, we don't tell them what to think, but we try and make them think.
We came back yesterday. We're trying to organize our strategy.
Studios are an archaic form of teaching, but they're also a way of working and they're a way of life.
A studio is a place where you learn to put together different types of ideas that traditionally were not combined in academic disciplines. Visual ideas and making things with written things and theory, history as well. And doing that with a knowledge of other disciplines. So, for example, geography, sociology, anthropology, they all kind of touch on it.
Where we spend a lot of time with them individually, several times a week. They work, we come, we talk about their work. We go away, they work, we come and we talk about their work. And it's always about the work, it's not about the student.
Today we're very excited because this will be the first brush with what the students have come up with.
First industry there. I think it's good to move it from a view of a person coming to the city.
It's not a pleasant, happy arrival. Now you have an empty site next to the train station where people arrive. What should be there? And you don't have to tell us now, but it seems to me that that's a key, because
And we've tried to help them figure out how to work on a problem, how to dive into it and get down in there and find the stuff to work with. We try not to tell them what the answer is.
And I find that when the UPenn students start working with the Philadelphia University students, we always have a richer, more holistic product. And then this year we're very excited about having the Czech Technical University students who have already influenced the studio greatly.
It's gonna be late the next 2 nights, and tomorrow night, you know, kind of being the pinnacle of lateness.
I'm just trying to figure out what to do with this site.
Yeah, it's a lot of work to do in only 5 days.
Some people won't sleep.
Finish? Never. No. So it's just sort of a microcosm of, you know, the mess that's going on.
Oh, I have to finish the...
I know, not really 1 minute. Maybe here, just like this.
Just
better.
maybe later, another time, maybe tomorrow.
It is so hard, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely tension, you know.
I think that we'll just continue to work till tomorrow.
Without sleeping?
Maybe. Till the time we go to plot, so yeah. So I get going.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
We would all like to get all those drawings done, but it doesn't always happen. But you never submit to not having those done until the end, until you can't do any more work, until it's pinned up on the wall.
We also need very high quality drawings and the cohesive for presentation. I believe tomorrow we will have wonderful presentation and people will like our proposal for the town.
It was a pleasure to get to work, especially with the Czech students. And I've enjoyed many parts of the last 4 intensive days of design.
A lot of the proposals that people will see today involve the town of Slavonice, but also the villages that are associated with it, like Mažiš, I think Mutišov, and some of the other neighboring villages, and how they can work together both on the Austrian side and the Czech side for economic benefit, as well as cultural activities, and as well as improving the land around all of these towns and villages.
Landscape architecture is, it seems to me, the quintessential discipline of making connections.
But sustainability is not just to do with technologies that we can apply. A very central piece of sustainability is remaking the way in which the built world and the natural world live together with each other.
All too often, differences in professions create artificial differences in the built world. I'm confident that what we're going to see and hear today is a demonstration of how those artificial boundaries do not need to exist, but that interdisciplinary work multiplies the value and contributions of each one of the professions.
Okay, we are Team Luca. I'm Jack.
Vanessa. Michelle. Edna. Megan.
And our idea is for Slavonice to be a new magnetic center, generating a healthier environment to live in, to work in, to attract people.
On first time I was like wondering why they choose Slavonice, because they are so beautiful. Then when we walked through the city and when we walk around, and I saw what they like and of which things they are taking pictures. I found out that there is many things which we could improve.
and a cultural system that is links Slavonice and Majish.
Then you see those finished projects, and they're all projects that concern themselves with the question, how can a place like Slavonice develop into a future? What kind of projects for infrastructure, tourism, the general life of people in the town can you implement here? Can you make real, which would give it a chance to survive also economically in the future?
What's most exciting is when the townspeople come and see the work, and we can talk to them about their thoughts, their reactions, get their ideas for next year.
I think the fact that the mayor came the first night and had such an engrossing talk with a number of people is a sign that the town is somehow more accepting of this whole thing.
Přijíždějí studenti prakticky z celého světa, v podstatě jsou nezatížení, jak se říká, takovým tím praktickým životem, jsou jednak školeni pro nějakou tu architektonickou činnost a město tam může najít v těch jejich návrzích nějaký takový pohledy do budoucnosti, co by se dalo ve městě udělat, nebo najít třeba i lepší způsoby, co se týče nějaký ty krajinné architektury nebo přizpůsobování prostě té situace tady ve městě.
Slavonice is here.
I'm personally hopeful that eventually some of those ideas will be picked up, there is interest, and that the municipality, that the town itself, together with us, can find the means to actually implement some of those projects, because they are very sensitively designed for this particular place. And some of them would make tremendous sense if we could realize them.
No tak profit pro město samozřejmě je ten, že se tu v podstatě prezentuje řada názorů lidí, kteří nejsou třeba omezeny nějakým tím místním názorem. I kteří tady žijeme, tak některé věci považujeme za všední, nezajímavý, a když přijde teda ten cizí člověk, tak přece jen to vidí trošku jinak a někdy ty návrhy můžou být třeba i lepší. A pokud budou podmínky pro to, aby jsme je mohli zejména z ekonomických důvodů realizovat, tak možná někdy se některý ten návrh tady objeví v skutečnosti.
Many people view Prague as the Czech Republic and never really understand that it is the center of a culture that is largely landscape-based. I mean, there's a lot of the Czech Republic that is deeply embedded in the landscape.
We have, of course, realized that when the students are in this very rural place in the countryside, that they also would like to experience what we call the high culture. And Prague is a name in the whole world, so we take them to Prague to draw, so they enjoy that at the end of their trip.
This is supposed to be one of the most beautiful bridges in the world. Franz Kafka lived at several places around this square. Show you this mark here. That is the water level of the Vltava River during the flood in 2002. It was the most devastating flood in recorded history, and we are talking 1,200 years.
I happen to look at
Right angle.
Divide between architecture and landscape architecture. How do you see that relationship?
And I think this studio was really a great opportunity for architecture students from here who have a great interest in landscape to work with landscape architecture students from the U.S. because I think that there's the view, particularly at a university like University of Pennsylvania and Philadelphia University, bring a more proactive and future view of what landscape architecture and architecture are, particularly landscape architecture in the studio. And the students of architecture here having contact with that, I think, and working in teams, working as, in a sense, partners on projects is a great experience for them and hopefully one that they can continue to build on in their future academic and professional careers. The opportunity to share the work that the students have done here in Prague is an opportunity for people to remember that Prague is part of a country.
This is the conclusion of the workshop phase between students of 3 different universities and faculty of 3 universities.
Jack Olin, James Phillips, Megan Storm, Yuichiro Tsutsumi, Zuzana Verkova, okay. Michaela Fischerova, Ekta Gupta,
For the next studio, and shall we continue with the European Greenbelt issues? Shall we focus on the town more? What would you say there?
Well, I think it would be interesting, particularly with the incorporation of Austrian students, to have more a town-to-town, kind of, rather than following the border, bridge the border.
The one practical issue we have with that is the academic schedules, because our schedule here, the European schedule starts much later, by something like a month.
Yeah. I mean, but that's part of the cross-Atlantic coordination.
Yeah, and that also means that when the program starts with this potentially new dimension, everybody knows everybody, so it's, you know, it's not like jumping into a cold swimming pool.
So yeah, that's what we shall do. All right. Good.
2012.
Yeah.
Here, the town is small enough, intimate enough, that it creates a very different context for the kinds of things that we do, where you can begin to understand it as a whole. And the interaction between people is fundamentally different here. You know, you can't, it's not necessarily that you want to, but you can't escape the reality of it as a whole community. In Prague, an American is viewed as an American. Here, what happens at this place is an American is viewed as a guest, as a partner. This is a beautiful laboratory for that reason. So why Slavonice? It makes perfect sense.